Okay, so here we go with the beginning intro to After Effects. Right now I'm using After Effects 2020. You could be using an older version, but it's probably going to be pretty similar with what we're doing today. I have this program Keycaster at the bottom that will show what keys I'm pressing as I'm going along. I wanted to just start off with some basics here and hopefully just get you up and running. I started with a new project. There was an intro screen and I just hit new project, or you'll probably see this screen. I want to just first of all say, like, the arrangement of this might look a little bit different. If your space looks a little bit different, you can go in here and choose one of these preset workspaces. I'm in animation, which I think is good for us to do right now. A few kind of concepts to think about. Right here we have this project panel, which shows us all the contents of our project. Down here we have this timeline, and the main content that we'll be working on will be in here. And then any windows or effects, we can choose what's shown here. If you go up to window and let's see, you can see that certain things are checked off, and that's determining what is showing up here. So if you need to change the type and you don't see the character palette here or window, then you can go and find it through here. Here it is, character. Okay, so let's start with the basics. We don't have anything in this project file, and what we want to do is start with a new composition. So we'll click on this button. You could always go to File or Composition, New Composition, Command N. Maybe we'll label this. We're going to start something called Keyframing, which will really get us off the ground with animating. So we have different sizes. I think I must have been doing something custom, or maybe that was an older version. I would say stick with one of the common presets for right now. Since we're thinking about using something that's pretty widespread, I would say let's do HD TV, which this is standard HD definition. 1080 refers to the pixels, vertical pixels. It'll be 1920 pixels wide, and then 2997 is the frame rate. So in film, you'll see it's 24. I believe it's in Europe, they use a 25 frame rate. But we're going to use this one, 2997. And this is a preset. You can see it brought this in 1920 by 1080, so you don't have to memorize those things just yet. Just be aware of what's here. Square pixels, we want to make sure that that's set up, and then frame rate, 29.97 frames per second. Over here you can see the time code. This is going to be 15 seconds long, and I think you should understand how to read the time code. It's going to start with hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. So that's why this is 0 hours, 0 minutes, 15 seconds, and 0 frames. I actually think we could probably just get away with something like 5 seconds for right now. The background color, we'll leave it as black. Okay, we'll create a new composition, and we can see it's set up right here. And as you build out compositions, they'll kind of start to appear here, and they're going to populate this project window here. So we're going to make sure we're in the keyframing window, and let's start with a basic shape and start animating that. So you can see the tools are up here, which is maybe a little bit different than Photoshop. You're used to seeing them on the left-hand side. So there's tools here, and we'll pick this shape tool. You can see there's a rectangle, a circle, ellipse. Maybe we'll start with the ellipse right now. And you can see there's a fill and a stroke. I'm just going to keep it basic. Let's just do a white fill, and could do a white stroke for now. Although there's 0 pixels on this, so I think even if I change this to red, you'll see that when I draw this, you're not going to really see anything. And I'll hold down Shift so that it draws a perfect circle. Okay. Yeah, so this is just a circle. There's a red stroke on it, but since it's 0 pixels, you see nothing. Whoops, I have to. I want to. One thing that you have to be aware of is what layer is being selected. So if I select this and then I change this, you should see that we're modifying that appearance. Okay, so we'll start playing around with this. This is a shape layer. That's what started when we used this shape tool. Now we're going to go into transform here, and these are different properties that we can change. So we could move the position around, you know, there we go. I'm clicking and dragging it horizontally. To do that, I'm going to just undo that. I could scale it up, right? Okay, you can rotate it as well. And so the way that we animate things, I have not animated yet. All I was doing was changing that. What we want to do is interpolate between two different states, or I guess different or changes in the properties. So we might want to start. Maybe we start really small and then we get really big, and we want to like save those states, and we want to animate in between. You know, what we're doing is creating we're creating still images, and then when they're seen in sequence, they give the appearance of animation or movement. Luckily, we don't have to do all the in-between frames. We just have to identify like the key moments and set keyframes there. And After Effects will figure out kind of the in-between states. Before I even get started, though, I really want to start with this. If you notice when I start scaling this down, up and down, it's scaling around the center point here, or the anchor, the anchor point, right? And this could be helpful. Like if we wanted this to orbit around here, you'll see, that would be really helpful. But if I wanted to scale things from the center or rotate from the center of this object, I need to move this point around. So what I'm going to do is use something called the pan behind tool. The keyboard shortcut is Y. There you go, Y. And with that selected and the layer selected, I'm going to pull this, to about the center of this. And from there, you'll see once I start rotating this, you'll see it's going to be coming from the center of that. It's a little bit off, but that's okay. And as we start to scale it, again, this to me is maybe the effect that I'm going for. Or if you wanted to do like a planetary orbit, maybe the other way would work. But you have control over this anchor point. This is the point around which all these transformations happen. So just be aware of that. Whoops. Looks like I deleted something. So Command Z. I can zoom in and zoom out of this. I'm doing Command minus, Command plus. You can also go to Fit in here to give you the full view. Okay, so let's start to animate this. We'll go to Transform, and maybe I'll move this to this side so it's out of my way. Let's just start with a simple position move. So what we're going to do is set a keyframe. Again, the keyframe is the this sort of key moment in the animation. It's like the save point, and we're going to activate it by pressing this button. It's a little stopwatch, and you'll see once I pressed it, there's a blue. It turns blue. There's a little icon drops, and you'll see in the timeline that's changed. I should say in the timeline you can see the number of frames, right? This is 1 second. You can also see this is a measurement of, again, here's the time code: hours, minutes, seconds, frames, in case you're lost. And this is to zoom in and out. Sometimes you want to get into the details. You want to look at it frame by frame, and you might want to zoom in for that. But then people also get stuck on this view, and you just want to be careful that you know how to zoom in and out. So let's go to 1 second. And let's just move this around. You could I like to do it with these sliders, but you could also use this tool and just grab it. If you hold down Shift, that ensures that you're just moving the X value, the horizontal value. So this is our first animation, and like I said, we just with 2 keyframes we're able to create animation. Here we've identified 2 key moments, and then After Effects will interpret all the in-between phases here. So that's helpful. Okay, let's move I'm I'm going to make another shape, and I want to also maybe show something similar that's happening here. I'm going to make a rectangle. Now, I want to be careful that when I make this, I'm not selecting this, because then I'll be drawing into the same layer. I actually want to make a new layer. So I want to, this is deselected, and maybe I'll draw a square right here. And I just wanted to kind of show maybe differences in timing and animation. So I can open this up. If you ever want to see what properties you've animated, you can hit the U button to open and close, and it will show you what properties here. And this is helpful when you're animating, so you can kind of compare things. Let's go ahead and do a similar thing where it starts here. Before I do anything, I should have changed this point. Now, you should do this before you put in your second keyframe, otherwise it's going to modify your animation. So I like to do that really early on. So there's that, and maybe we'll go to the 1 second mark, and let's see, whoops. Let's try to bring this out. Now I'm just pulling the position. Oh. Okay, so I'm eyeballing this, but basically what I want to do is show you that I've animated two shapes moving. If you look at the motion of these, I want us to start to really early on get an idea of the subtlety of motion. The animation curve in this sense, it's following a linear path, which means that it's the same constant speed as it goes across. Let's take a look at what I mean. There's a button up here called the graph editor, and I know it's kind of scary to look at graphs, but this is something that I think you should start from the very beginning. Now you want to pull, you want to click on position, and it's going to show you the speed. It's either going to show you the speed or the change here. So right now it's showing us the speed, which says 1500 pixels per second. We can change that. If we go into, you can see that speed graph. We can also look at the value graph, and this is the reason we call this linear interpolation, is that it follows a straight line, so it's a constant speed. And I think this one is maybe more intuitive to understand. What we can do is add some accelerating and decelerating into the curve. And actually, let me do that right now by I have this selected, and I'm going to hit F9. So that's going to add this sort of what we call easing. So you're going to see the curve here change, and you should see that the motion is a little bit different. So this is the rectangle below, and you can see that it starts off a little bit slower, and then it gains speed, and then it slows down at the end, whereas the circle is going at the same speed the whole way through. From here, we're able to even play with this some more. There's two things we could do here. We could use either the speed graph or the value graph. I'll show both. Here's the speed graph, and you can see instead of that straight line, it's now been more curved. Now, if we pull on these Bezier handles, we can affect the speed. So if I want it to be really fast in the beginning and then slow down some more, what I'd want to happen is have this line, this is a little bit maybe counterintuitive to some people, be really steep, because the slope of the line shows the speed of it. And then, if I make this kind of more a little flatter like this, that means it's slower over this point. So let's see how this looks. You can see that shoots out really quickly, and then it slows down. So this, for position or any property like this, speed graph is helpful. It's like it gets you in right away. But some people, I think, have an easier time with the value graph. So I want to show how to do the value graph. Right now, what you're seeing is there's an X position and a Y position, so a horizontal and vertical. Now, with position, you're going to need to right-click this and say separate dimensions. That's so that we can control these things independently. So what that does is it breaks this out into X position and Y position, and then that lets us play with these handles some more. So let's do a similar thing. Like, what if you can see if we make this a little steeper, it should be again faster and then slower. So they do similar things, except I think that some people maybe have an easier time understanding kind of how this looks like. This is showing us the pixels over time and the movement. But and again, the way to activate these handles is to turn on easing, which we did by doing F9, or you could also click on this, right click, and go to Keyframe Assistant, and Easy Ease is what we did. So that's how we do that. Let's add easing on both, and let's kind of show what that looks like. Why don't we add one more shape just for good fun? Let's do a polygon. Maybe we can put it down here. I'm gonna press V to select it. Oh, my bad. I put it in the same layer. I want to build a different layer with that, so let me just draw that there. Okay. Just moving that around, and yeah. We can set the number of points here, so maybe if I want a triangle, it's something like that. So I'm going to just reinforce kind of what we did earlier. Let's move the center point to here. And let's keyframe position. At this point, I also want to reinforce some keyboard shortcuts. If you want to animate position, just press P. So let me do that again. P, right? That's turning it on and off. Okay, so we'll do P here, and whoops, sorry. P, there we go. We'll animate that there. I want to jump to the next keyframe. I can use the letter K to jump to the next keyframe, or J to go backwards. So again, that's K to jump forwards, J to jump backwards, inner set keyframe. So that's really helpful. And then maybe I just want to pull this along. Let's just set that up. Let's add easy ease. So F9. Let's go into here. Again, if you want to edit the value graph, you need to right click and separate dimensions. I'm just going to do the speed graph, and I also want, or maybe let's do something that's a little bit different. Let's do something that's like slower in the beginning and then faster at the end. So this is what the speed graph would look like. You can see how it's slow, and then again, the slope of this line is not that steep, and then it gets steep here, and tweak these. And this is really how you get control over this. Okay, we've got that set up. Maybe for this one, we'll add a little rotation as well. So we'll hit R for rotation. That's the keyboard shortcut, R. Set the keyframe by pressing the button. Let's go to the next keyframe by hitting K, right? That was, again, J and K will jump us around. And let's just move it. Maybe we'll make it go to 360, which is one full rotation. Oh, I should say that the way I'm previewing this also is by pressing the period button, or sorry, not the period, but the space bar. And you can see that here, the space bar is letting me preview that. You can see that this rotation is animating in a linear fashion. So if we looked at the graph of this, it's a constant speed, or if it makes it easier for you, it's like this linear kind of a linear speed, I guess, or linear interpolation. Now, if we hit F9, we can get these handles, and then we can start to play with it. I think I only selected one though, so let me make sure both are selected so I get handles. And then I might want to, maybe to make it similar to the motion, I'll slow it down and then I'll speed it up. Yeah, and again, you can tweak the motion and pull these curves. Okay, so again, I'm pressing the space bar to do a quick preview. It was kind of, I kind of did that subconsciously, but you also might see this here, and you could press this as well. I should say right now, our timeline is 5 seconds long, and we have a beginning part of the render zone and an ending part. This, when we go to export this, and maybe we should do that next, we are going to export whatever is under this area. You can see that this green bar occurs when we're doing a preview, when the area has been pre-rendered, and this is previewing in your RAM. So if you're animating and you're having issues right now, I would recommend maybe closing some other programs that are using up RAM. You could also, I don't think you're going to encounter the problem with this, something so simple like this, but you could also change the resolution lower so you get a faster preview. So let's set the render region. We don't need the full 5 seconds. We can actually click and drag this, or there's a keyboard shortcut. The letter N is going to bring the ending of this render region here. So if we just want to render this part out, we could do that. Okay, so right now this is going to export with these white shapes, and by default it's going to export with a black background. But I should let you know, in composition settings there are ways to change the background color, but when we go to export this, this will, using the method that we're going to do, it's going to get rid of this color. It's going to change it to black, because this is just kind of showing us what we can set the composition color while we're working. If you wanted to set a different color in the background, you're better off creating a new solid layer, and maybe we should do a different color. Maybe we'll do blue, just to show you this. And then this is probably a good illustration too. The layer order matters. Whatever is on the top will cover over whatever's below. So we'll drag this, click and drag it, bring it down here so that we have this set up. And before we finish this off, we created separate layers in here, and then we added keyframes, right? And into all these, I'm hitting U to see the keyframe properties. We added easing into these, and we edited the speed or the values with the graph editor in here. And that allowed us to customize the animation and really get control over it. We added a background here. We learned to preview things by pressing spacebar, which is a keyboard shortcut, or you could press this button, but and I think you can set the shortcut to a different value or different key, but this is what I use. All right, let's go to export this. Now, we could use the render queue, which is sort of part of After Effects, or I think the Adobe Media Encoder queue is actually a better thing to use now. This lets us kind of determine a number of different outputs for it. There are some situations where we want to use the After Effects render queue, but we're going to export an MP4 from here, and with a H.264 codec, which I think is a reasonable codec in terms of quality and speed for exporting. So that's going to open up the Adobe Media Encoder. Now that takes a little while usually, so let's don't freak out if it doesn't appear right away. It might take some time. Okay, so it took a little bit of time, but here we are in Adobe Media Encoder, and it automatically kind of chose to name this file according to what the composition was called, in this case keyframing. And you can see that it's using this H.264 codec. There's different codecs or kind of I guess qualities that you can render this at, and there's some presets here. That what I like about this is that I think it's a little bit more intuitive. There's presets here, and this is pretty fast. We do need to check where this is going right now. It's right now like sending it to some unknown area. So let's click on this and save it to, I have a demo files folder, and I'll call this keyframing. This is an MP4 file. You can see that is coming out. And before you do anything, you need to press this button here to start the queue, and this will start rendering it. You can see it's there will be a progress bar, and this should be pretty quick because it's not that long, and it's not the assets aren't particularly big. And you can see that rendered pretty quickly. We can go look at the file now. And here is the file. You can see it's rendered as an MP4, and there we go. So we've worked with After Effects, and we've animated some basic shapes, and we've exported them. Now let's look at another composition and maybe look at a more practical example of animating. So let's go back into our After Effects, and we're going to import an Illustrator file. And the file that we're going to import, I'll actually show it to you. It's this file right here. This is an Illustrator file that's separated out into layers, and you can see they're named, which is good for us to do. This file was created using one of the presets, an HD TV preset, which is 1920 by it should be 1080, I believe. Yeah, you can see 1080, and you'll see that there's actually some lines here which are indicating title safe and action safe areas, which when you're working for TV, you generally want to have all of the stuff kind of close to the center. You don't want things too close to the edge in case they get cropped off. But what we want to do is animate this fish to follow this path, and we'll kind of see if we can get that to work. And it's also going to need to rotate as it moves around here, and we can play with the easing and the speed. So this is what the file looks like. Let's go to our After Effects and let's import that file. Now we can either double click in this project window, we can hit Control-I, or we can go up to File, Import File. So however you want to do it, I'm going to hit Command-I, and I'm going to find this file called, it is called Keyframing 1. Really important next step, we want to import this as a composition. What we created earlier was a composition, and this lets us play with it as a layer. So I would recommend opening it as a composition. So what happened right here is you can see that it imported the layers as assets, and we have this composition already created for us called keyframing. And I'm going to work in this composition. I mean, you could always create another composition and then drag these elements into it. Like I could do this. Right now you don't see any change because they're overlapping. But I could, if you have separate layers and you want to customize or create your composition in After Effects, you could do that. But this file is already ready to be animated. So like I said, we've broken it up into layers and we've labeled them. So let's go with animating the position of this. First thing we need to do is change let's select the flounder, and we want to move this anchor point. We'll hit Y, right? So Y is giving us the pan behind tool, and we're moving the anchor point here. So wherever this is where the transformations are going to start from. This is really important because when we rotate it, if we left it here, it would rotate around that center point. Let's just go and start dropping keyframes. What's nice about the keyframing function is once you press it one time and you make any changes, it's going to remember those changes. I'm going to hit V for the selection tool I'll just grab it. I mean, I could do it by I could do it by clicking and dragging these, but I'll just play around with this. Okay, so let's bring it down like this. Now, I'm probably gonna be editing this as I go, but roughly, you know, I want to have a similar speed throughout the whole thing, so that's why I'm leaving less time between these areas where there's less distance to travel and more of a distance here. Okay, so you can see that by default there's this like kind of spatial interpolation. It's like it interpreted kind of where it would be physically, and it's also doing that with the keyframes, like in terms of time. Like that to me is not quite right. It's going like outside. I mean, obviously I haven't rotated this thing yet, so what I want to do here is actually really finesse the path of this, and I can do that by grabbing the pen tool, and you can, just like a Bezier, you could square these off if you wanted to, or you could I believe you could go in and select the layer, and okay, you could go in and with the selection tool you could go in and fine-tune these. So maybe on this one I'll give it more of a curve, right? Maybe that the first one I wanted to show, hey, how would you make it like a little bit of a right angle, and yeah, so you can change this motion path. So here we go. The next thing we want to animate is the rotation around here. So let's go to this layer, and we'll press R for rotation. Let's start keyframing here. I'm gonna hit U so I can see like roughly, like I know that it gets to this point where this keyframe is, so maybe that's where you want it to make the full turn. Would be, or you know, you can always move this around if you want it to feel a little bit different. There we go. Okay, this is an area that tricks people sometimes. If I want this to start turning here, you know, the problem is if I start moving this like this, After Effects is going to interpret all this as movement, as a transition. So you can see it's already starting to move in the middle, which is not something I want, so I'm going to do Command Z. One easy way to get around this is to, if we want the rotation to be the same, is maybe we can just drop the same keyframe in here. You can see it says add or remove keyframe. Just click there, and it's going to just drop the current value there. So that it's kind of like holding it, and that will let us change or hold that position. It looks like, oh whoops, I probably went the wrong way. I want to go maybe back to 0. There we go. So I'm moving, and then just in this one area. There we go. So that's our animation. You can always go in and fine tune this as you want. Like if we wanted to go in and edit these in the graph editor, I probably want to turn these into easy ease. So do F9, so I can start to grab these. Now the position again is going to be, before we get into it, we could either, we could always do the speed graph, which is nice and easy maybe, but this might be like a little bit counterintuitive. In this example, maybe I will separate this out. You'll go to separate dimensions, and then that will give you the ability to play with the X and Y position, right? Again, if you want to get in closer, you can drag. So we could turn on, I think it looks like, oh, we didn't turn on the easy ease, but the other thing you could do is down here there's these icons that will turn it on for you. So you can see that changed that, and that will allow us to pull this. So this means it's going to go faster. You can see the slope is steeper, and then slow down. You see it's a little bit faster in that moment. And you might want to, actually for all of these, I might just turn on easy ease. Looks like got on for some, but not all of them. Okay, so and maybe it's something where, yeah, let's say we wanted to go slow in the beginning and then catch up. We'll flatten out the slope of this line, so it's slow, speeds up, you know, and again, the value of this is that we're really learning to control and customize the speed of this. We don't want to use just the default interpolation, because it looks kind of robotic and kind of stiff. You know, maybe this is too much. You could always go in here and just fuss with it for a long time. Okay, so that's our version right there. And you know, with these compositions right now, you can see that if I just wanted to stop it there, I could just hit the letter N, and it's going to stop this render region. Or some of you, like if you wanted to make this a really long animation, and you know, right now it's set to 5 seconds because I think that was the previous composition size, but you could always make this longer or shorter. In my case, it looks like I could make this, for example, 4 seconds, and it would be fine. This is a way for you to change it. Sometimes you're working on a composition and you think it's going to be really short, and then it gets longer, and you know, you're not stuck to the composition size that you have. You can always add to it. So I think this is a good example to practice on. Just to review what we did, we imported an Illustrator file into After Effects through this project panel. You can double click, hit Command I, or do File, Import, and then we animated this fish. We moved the anchor point to the center so that all the transformations would happen around the center of this fish. Then we keyframed both the position and the rotation, and we did some customization of the speed with speed and value with the graph editor. Let's go into rendering again. Let's add to the Adobe Media Encoder, and this is going to pop up in the Media Encoder. I believe that the second time you add something in there, it's a little bit quicker. There you go. That one, because the Media Encoder is already open, it's quicker. Let's go into where we're going to save this. Let's save it here, keyframing 1, and we're just going to press the play button. And this is our animation.